Hello, today's tutorial is going to be an Easel box card. I wanted to make a super special card for my friend, and I had seen a video earlier about Easel cards and thought that this was just perfect. So I actually went ahead and cut this out first, but all you need is to cut 4 squares that are 4 by 4 inches, and then you need to score at 1 and then at 3 inches, flip it over and do the same, score at 1 and at 3 inches, go all the way around, and then you have this this is what it's going to look like. So once you have those score marks, you're going to cut up to the second score mark as such on both ends, and then you flip it over and you do it on the opposite side. But this is going to create our little boxes for our card, and you are going to end up with the 2 by 2 little box square. So once you do this, you are going to be folding onto the creases, and you could use a bone folder if you want. I started doing it without, but I decided to pull it out. You definitely don't need it, but I figure it kind of helps press those down. So you're just going to go around your box and you're going to crease on all of those creases, fold them down. And then, like I said, this is going to be creating your little box, and you'll see right now as it forms. I am only going to show you one, but it's the same process for all of them. And you can see here how the little box is going to look so perfect. So I used tape, a combination of tape and glue to glue this, but you could use whatever you think is going to work best. I wanted to give you a little backstory on making this card. I was looking to make a special card for my friend, and I recently saw a video from Lindsay the Frugal Crafter that she had these kits that were to make easel cards, and they look so fun. So then I thought that I wanted to make one, but I wanted to make it a little bit extra special. So I went to my good old friend Google, and I just Googled easel cards. When I Googled it, I usually just look at pictures, and I saw one that caught my attention and clicked on it. Luckily enough, it had a link to a website that had a tutorial. The website is snapguide.com, and I will link it below so that way you guys can check it out if you want to. And I'm also going to link you to my blog post where I'm going to put all the measurements and everything, so it is easier for you to access it, and just in case that you need a little bit extra help with the tutorial. I followed the steps on the tutorial that I found, and it was very simple and easy. The lady that made it, she was very detailed, so it was very easy to make. Though I guess at some point I made a little bit of mistakes because I had to tweak it just a little bit on the measurements and create my own, but it worked out just fine. So, like I was saying, once you make these little boxes, aren't they just adorable? So here I have my 4 little boxes ready, and now we're going to be creating little sleeves for them. So for the sleeves, I found that I needed to cut strips that were 7 3/8 of an inch by 2 1/8. So I know they're kind of like specific measurements, but this worked out just fine. And if you change the size of your card or the design, you would just have to tweak those measurements again just a little bit, or to fit your size. But in this case, we are going to be making the size, and I am going to be showing you where to score. Now, from the tutorial I was following, it was a little bit confusing as to where you would be scoring for these, because it was saying to put marks at 1 and then at 2 and then at 1 and then at 2. Something silly. You can check it on the link below. But I thought it would be easier if you put actual measurements, so you can keep on going using just your one ruler. So I used this one as a test, and I did the scoring as I was told on the tutorial by moving my ruler. And I know I was a little bit off by the end of it, but I was able to fix it, no problem. So once I put those little tiny marks, I used my T-square ruler to make the lines, so that way I could, make it easier to score it and make sure that I was going to be doing it straight. And once I had it here, I decided to pull out my scoring board, though, the measurements were a little bit off, or, past where the little grooves are. I just moved it a little bit to kind of fit the lines, or the score lines that I had, to somewhere that I was going to be able to use it and score. So once I did that, I just fold it all over, and then you can see that your sleeve has been created. I did glue this one just to make sure that my my little box was gonna fit in there and that it was gonna work. So here I'll show you in a second that it worked just fine. So that you see the little square and it goes in and out. And there, that's where you can see that it was a little bit off on each side, but once I fixed it, it was fine. And again, I'll tell you the score marks or where I made the score marks, but like I said, I'll leave a link below. So I scored at 1 1/4, 3 1/4, 4 5/16, and then 7 3/8. So again, like I said, you could just tweak it a little bit to match what you are making, but this worked out just fine. And here they are. So now we're gonna put it together. For this, we're going to cut a piece of paper that is 3 by 3, just to use it as a base to anchor those little sleeves and put them together. And so what I did here, I just used a pencil and I marked at the 1.5 inch mark, and I drew a line across on each side to, create the little measurements, and that way I could use that as a guide to make sure that when I'm putting the sleeves here, that they're going to be evened out. Now from the tutorial, and I also thought that it was fun, was to put the little sleeves or the drawers looking onto each direction. So on any direction that you look on your box, you're gonna have an opening or a little drawer by doing this. So I'll show you in a second once I'm done completing the last one, so you can see what I'm talking about. But here I am just gluing them, and as you can see, those lines work perfect to help me line them up. And this is what I was talking about, that you have a square, an opening on each side, this way. And you could, I suppose you could do it having two on one side and two on the other, but this one was fun because you could rotate it if you kind of like kept the card at a desk or something, so it would be fun. So now for this next step, I cut out another 4 by 4 inch square of paper, because I wanted to use that as a base, or to cover the top, so that way I can put all of the little sleeves together and start creating and forming the box. So this 4 by 4 inch square worked out just fine. And then here's another reason why I liked using the wet glue, is because it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to put it together, just in case that you didn't line it up perfectly the first time. You can go back and fix it. And then again, if you're off just by a tiny bit, you could always trim it off just a little bit. But here we are, and this is adding more support. Now to start decorating the box, I cut out pattern paper, and I did the same, 2 4 by 4 inch squares, and here I am gluing one at the top, and then I'll be gluing the other one at the bottom. Now with this one at the top, it's kind of funny because I wasn't thinking, I was kind of trying to go by the tutorial, but I wasn't thinking ahead. And I should have waited to use a pattern paper here, because in the end I ended up covering it, but I'll show you in a second. Now for the bottom of my card, I used the paper, and I put the pattern paper glued onto the card, and you'll see here why. Because when you set it on a table, you want to be able to see that pretty paper. And here you can see, that you are going to be able to see it. So this is pretty much the base for our card. Now we are going to decorate the little sides, and here we are making the little base for our easel. For this one, I cut out a 4.5 by 9 inch piece of paper. Now the tutorial was asking for a 9.5, but because of my measurements, I had to tweak it a little bit, like I said, and 9 inches ended up working out just fine. So here, once you get that paper, you score at half of it, which is going to be at 4.5, and then you score at half again, which is 2 1/4, and that's what's going to form your easel. Now to start decorating the sides of the box, the ones that are not going to be having a drawer in, we are going to be cutting the little squares, so little pieces of paper that are 2 1/8 by 1 1/8. And that's for these little squares right here, and we're going to be gluing it there. So this is just to add decoration, and you can use whatever pattern paper, or you can leave them white or whatever paper that you originally used, but this is just a way to kind of decorate it. So I just went around and put it all on each one of the boxes or the sleeves, and just went around, with no specific pattern or anything. I just put them into each one of the little sleeves. It was already starting to look good, but then I also thought, when I was in the middle of it, that I should have done this before, was to add a piece of tape to add a little bit of support and glue in these two boxes together, because there was nothing holding each other together other than, just having the top and the bottom paper that was holding them. So by adding this, it kind of helped anchor them together, and I think it gave it a little bit more of a more finished look. So here you can see we just have the last one to make, and this was so super fun, guys. So I hope that you guys give it a try. I don't know if you've already seen this before, but this, like I said, this was new to me, and I was super excited because I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a little box that you can not only give a nice card to a friend, but you could also include some goodies in here. So that was just perfect. Now we are going to be decorating the little drawers, and for these ones we just cut the 2x1 inch little strips. Again, I used the same pattern paper because I wanted it all to look a little bit uniform, even though the pattern wasn't going to match perfectly. I wanted it to be the same pattern paper. So I am just using my glue to put it on. You can pick whatever side you want. It doesn't really matter because it is a square and the sizes will fit anywhere. Now, if for whatever reason you are off just a tiny bit, you could always trim it off, and no problem at all. So once you do that, you are going to be having the little boxes. And now the next thing was kind of trying to think of what to use as little holders or little openings. I know in the tutorial that I watched, they had some ribbon, and then she had some little like beads or squares. I don't have a lot of like little embellishments like that, but I did find these little push pins that I've had them in my stash, and I don't even use them, that I thought that they would fit perfectly. So they're these pink little knobs, and I just cut or trimmed out with this wire cutter. That little piece, I trimmed it off. So, depending on what you're doing, you can cut more or less, but I thought it was perfect. Now, if you decide to go this route and do this, just make sure that you kind of cover it, or, that you are careful, because this little piece will come flying, and you don't want to hurt yourself or hurt someone around you. So just kind of keep in mind of that. Now, to glue it onto the little box, I decided to use some hot glue, and I am just adding a little bit of hot glue to the little button. And then I also decided to add a little bit of glue to the end, because when I cut it, it was a little bit bigger, because my box is not thick. You can still kind of feel some of that poking through, and I didn't want it to be a danger for anybody to poke or cut their finger. So by putting that extra hot glue on that side, it not only adds more stability, but it also helps you so it stays protected, or protect that little metal piece. But here you are, and you see they're just already starting to look so cute. And I thought that these little push pins were perfect to use as little holders or little knobs for the drawers. Also, the pink color kind of matched perfectly, so it was a win-win in all ways. So moving on, I am going to be putting all of these back into the box, and then it's going to be time to decorate the box. So now you see here they fit perfectly. You can pull them in and out, and it was so much fun just grabbing the little knobs and putting them in and out. You could just sit there and play for hours, right? But anyway, let's move on and decorate our box. Now, if you were only making a box by itself, this will be done, and that is just perfect, because you could also use it for some goodies. But because this is supposed to be a card, we are going to be adding the easel portion to it. And this is where I kind of messed up, because I needed to add the easel. I could have added the easel first and then the pattern paper on top, but like I said, I wasn't thinking ahead, so I added the pattern paper, which I am going to be covering it, but we'll just put another piece of paper later, so it doesn't matter. The good thing about this is that by having that extra layer of paper, it adds a little bit more support and stability to the card, which is always good. So once I had that there, I cut out another 4x4 square piece of paper, and I glued it onto the top so that way I could cover it. Now on this one, for some reason, I was off by just a tiny bit on the end, and I just used my scissors to trim it off. So, that way you couldn't see the white outside of the pattern area. Here I am taking some of the drawers, and I'm just trimming it off, but it was pretty easy. Now, yes, on some of the corners was a little harder to do it, but it wasn't too much trouble at all, and in the end it still looked good. Now I also decided to decorate the back of it because I didn't want just the white paper to be there, because since I put the little drawers all around the box, if you were to put it at a desk and you want to be able to turn it around, you'll still be able to see that, and just kind of be a little bit pleasing to the eye. So all I did was cut another 4.5 by 2.25 inch little strip of paper using that same pattern, and then I just glued it to the back, and that was all you needed to do. Now we're getting to the end of the box. On this video, I am not going to decorate the whole thing completely because I will show you the finished product on a different video. But this is the main idea. You kind of get what the point or what the purpose of this box is. Now for the front of the card, or the main area, I pulled out this beautiful pattern paper. It is a doily that I got from my last swap from Dina, which it's very, very pretty. And even though the florals are a little bit different, I thought that it would still fit perfectly with the theme here and the florals. And also that little pattern of the doily around it, I just thought it just looked so lovely. So I am just figuring out how far or how high I want to go into the pattern. And then from there, all I have to do is trim it at the bottom, so that way it could have a flat base onto the card for when you're putting it there. And isn't it already looking so super cute? So here it is, and that would pretty much finish our card. Now you just have to add some more embellishments, and then add something onto that base that would hold the card or the easel open. So this is pretty much it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!